Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this morning. We're just going to give it another minute or so. We have some folks that are still logging on and connecting, and then we will start the webinar. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining. It looks like we still have a few folks trickling in, so we're going to give it another minute or so, and we'll get started at 10:03. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Jessica Love, Executive Director for Prosperity Indiana, and I'd like to welcome you to Prosperity Indiana's Changing for Good series. For those of you who have attended our previous webinars, I hope you're finding them really helpful as you're navigating the challenges we're all facing, along with Indiana's communities that we serve and emerging from this pandemic. As we start the webinar, please note a few housekeeping items. All lines are muted, but we do want this program to be interactive, so please ask questions by typing your question into the question box. If you lose internet connectivity, reconnect using the link emailed to you. Also, the presentation is being recorded and will be available on Prosperity Indiana's COVID-19 Hub. And then for those of you who are new to Prosperity Indiana, we want you to know that we are Indiana's cross-sector intermediary for organizations dedicated to community economic development. With nearly 200 organizational members, our network builds a better future for our communities by creating inclusive opportunities to build assets and improve Hoosiers' lives. So I encourage you to visit our website, prosperityindiana.org, to learn more about the resources, engagement opportunities, advocacy, and programs that we provide our members, and really hope that you can become part of our growing and strong network. And now let's set the stage for this morning's program with a quick poll. We want to get your thoughts on family financial resiliency after COVID-19. And are the results in?
The results are still coming in, so I'm just going to give it a few more seconds, Jessica. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, results are in, and it looks like our top response was 50%. Had 59%.
So, from thank you, Caleb. What we're seeing in this work is, the need is great, particularly in BIPOC communities, and that's why we're here this morning. So to begin, I would like to turn the program over to Mimi Hong, representing our sponsor for today's program, First Financial Bank. We absolutely could not do our work without leaders like First Financial. Mimi?
Good morning. Thank you and welcome everyone. First Financial Bank is excited to sponsor this series. Working through Prosperity Indiana give us a channel to invest in Indiana neighborhoods in a way that will give more individual equal access to resources and opportunity. First Financial Bank exists to be woven into the community we serve. So we look forward to the impact of this partnership will make in those communities throughout the state. Back to you, Marie.
Thanks so much, Mimi, and thanks to First Financial Bank for sponsoring today's program. I'm Marie Beeson, and I am honored to introduce today's speakers. Andrea Prue-Brunicki is Vice President, Community Impact, Lake Area United Way, and develops and manages the Level Up program. Level Up was launched in August 2019 and helps more than 85 low-income ALICE families navigate access to livable wage jobs, strengthen their financial management skills, find quality, affordable childcare, and receive basic needs support. Joining Andrea is Tyrone Spann. Tyrone's professional experience includes over 22 years in the nonprofit and higher education fields in Northwest Indiana. Tyrone worked for the Foundations of East Chicago for 18 years and has also served as a consultant for Lake Area United Way. He has held leadership positions in Indiana Blacks in Philanthropy, as well as the Indiana Philanthropy Alliance, and currently serves as the Indiana Program Officer for the Indiana Asset Funders Network. So why don't we begin with Andrea with an overall, with Tyrone with an overall overview of post-pandemic financial resiliency.
I can switch if you want. That's fine with me. But
I'm
gonna turn my camera off so it won't distract. But yes, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being with us today. Again, my name is Tyrone Spann, and I'm the Indiana Program Officer for Asset Funders Network. Next slide, please. So what I'll be covering today is just providing you with a brief overview of asset building in case you did not know what that is. Also wanting to discussing the impact of COVID-19 has had on assets, particularly here in the state of Indiana, and looking at the imperative for racial equity in asset building. So next slide. So what exactly is Asset Funders Network? I just want to give a brief overview before I begin talking about who we are as AFN. Next slide, please. So Asset Funders Network is the only membership organization for grant makers focused on advancing economic security. The Asset Funders Network connects philanthropic leaders to drive greater impact where it is needed the most. So our motto is to inform, connect, influence, and build. Next slide, please. So our overall mission is to engage philanthropy to advance equitable wealth building and economic mobility as it relates to the following areas. Next slide. Health, education, employment and income, housing, financial health, the wealth gap, and small business and co-ops and micro enterprise ownership. So as you can see, when you're looking at asset building, it really encompasses all aspects of life. And particularly what we focus in on are these particular areas. So what I would like to do now is just to talk a little bit about what, next slide please, but what is asset building? So next slide. So asset building is how individuals, families, and communities gather the resources that will move them towards economic well-being for now and for years to come. With assets, people move from making ends meet to planning for their future. And these assets enable people to live with housing security, improve their children's opportunities, take risks resulting in better jobs or business startups, advance through higher education, remain secure through financial disruptions, maintain good health, retire securely, and pass on security to the next generation. So as you can see, with all these things, these are all the things that people really strive for in their overall lives, just to make sure that they live a healthy life. So looking at this, so asset building is a strategy that enables greater access to economic security and opportunities, particularly for low-income communities and communities of color. These assets includes, when you look at it from a financial resource standpoint, access to credit, homes, savings, retirement accounts, insurance, and business ownership. And then from an individual standpoint, you're looking at it from a standpoint of education, access to healthcare, job skills and experience, vehicles, transportation, social networks and community support, and then in those situations where it is applicable, citizenship. So that is in a nutshell what asset building is. So now I want to move on to what COVID's impact has been on asset building here in Indiana. We all know that COVID has had a tremendous, unprecedented impact on this, not only the Indiana, but the entire world economy. So looking at this, I can inundate you guys with a lot of numbers and facts and data. And I think we've all seen a lot of that information over the last year and a half. But what I do want to do is focus in on a few things that kind of brings home what we're looking at here in the state of Indiana. So first, so kind of looking at it from overall the numbers about what the impact has been. So, and these numbers were as of March 21st of this year. So 676,247 Hoosiers have been diagnosed with COVID. 92,731 Hoosiers had COVID-related ER visits. 47,398 Hoosiers were hospitalized due to their developing COVID. And unfortunately, 12,510 Hoosiers have died due to COVID-related syndromes. Now, and as I know, and these numbers continue to grow, but when you look at it from an overall standpoint, as you can see, this really has had a huge impact on the overall health and mental health of citizens here in our state. I mean, just looking at it, you have over 92,000 ER visits that may not have had to happen. So those are extra bills. 47,000 hospitalizations, and then 12,000 deaths and funerals. So, so you start to look at this information. COVID just by itself has had a huge impact on the ability to build assets and create wealth just from a health standpoint. Next slide, please. So when you couple the health-related issue along with the employment situation, employment numbers here in Indiana rose during the pandemic from an overall level of 4% in February of 2020 to an estimated peak of about 16.9% in April of 2020. Now, we have been able to start doing some reverse of that. But there are some still factors that are still drastically impacting families across the state. If you can look at the next slide, please. So when you look at it, particularly from the individuals who we deal with from that needs to work on their asset building. A lot of times they work on the health industry and also the service industry. So let's looking at it just from just one segment of the health and service industry, looking at restaurants. So about 20% of the restaurants in Indiana have permanently closed since the start of the pandemic. And 17% of Indiana restaurant operators state that conditions will never return to normal for their business. So if you're looking at it from a standpoint of, here you have the initial issue of the impact of health. Now you're looking at the ability to actually get gainful employment you can start to see the dominoes starting to kind of flow here. If you could look at the next slide. So when you're looking at the overall economic health of the state, the GDP of Indiana fell from 337.6 billion in February of 2020 to 327.3 billion in April of this year. So that's a 3.1% drop. Now, we haven't been as bad as some other states, but a 3% drop in your overall GDP is something that you have to look at in regards to being able to recover those assets. So now there's even a greater pressure on how do you access these assets and financial resources in the state. There's also been a 135,900 drop in the number of jobs available in Indiana during that time period. So that's a 4.3% change. So as you can see, there's a lot of pressures and a lot of issues that are coming into place when you're looking at these situations. So now we want to transition to a little bit more as talking about what are some other factors that are playing into the role of barriers for people to build their assets. So as we know that Governor Holcomb is withdrawing Indiana from the federal program that has provided an additional $300 per week in unemployment benefits. This actually started this past Saturday. So now you're looking at a situation where individuals who may still be facing health-related issues, loss of job situations, now these extra $300 per week that they were relying on just to maintain themselves have been taken away. Also, you're looking at it starting the first of this month, the state has reactivated the requirement that individuals need to document that they are actively searching for employment to maintain their benefit eligibility. So you're looking at a situation where you had an economy that completely crashed and came to a halt and now coming back in. And there may be some people who are still struggling with being able to get back into the flow of what's happening on a day-to-day basis. So you're looking at these safety nets that are starting to be taken away from individuals that may not necessarily be prepared to re-enter the workforce or society as a whole prior to the pandemic. So next slide. So where does this leave us? So if you're looking at it from a standpoint of what we're talking about with historical situations, and you can, so historically, people and communities of color have not had equal access to the financial resources as their white counterparts. This discrepancy placed them in a more vulnerable position to have the effects of the overall economic downturn from COVID-19 be multiplied and more severe. Therefore, any effort to reverse the negative impacts from the pandemic must consider that additional measures will be needed in order to assist these communities to begin the recovery efforts. So we take this into a whole. You look at the numbers, and all of these numbers that I've kind of thrown out there. It goes without saying that the communities of color and the low-income communities have been even more, from percentage-wise, impacted stronger than other communities. So you already have these communities that were already struggling with being able to build their assets, and then when this overall pandemic hit and the economic shutdown hit, that put people who were in a deficit situation, even in a deeper deficit situation, when everyone was scrambling and fighting for these resources. So as we start to look at this, you have to keep in mind that not everyone started off at an equal playing field, that others had systemic issues that caused them to be behind other communities to begin with, and this just magnified the factors 100-fold when you're talking about the COVID situation. So when you're talking about recovery, there's things that you have to look at. So, so next slide, please. So what are some things to consider as we're moving into this? Next slide. So as you're looking at trying to look at how do you start to build recovery, particularly in communities of color and other higher impacted communities, initiatives should not be designed just as a one-size-fit-all to allow flexibility, to account for historical, economic, and societal insufficiencies across communities. Also, these initiatives should not be designed within a vacuum, but the understanding that economies and systems are interconnected in various ways that are not always obvious on the surface. So one way to accomplish this is to consider how an initiative fits within one of the 3 R's that we like to do. It's called relief, recovery, and rebuild. Next slide, please. So when you're talking about this, it really is in the phase. So you really want to start talking about, initially, the first part is the relief programs that immediately offer economic security to help communities in need. So you have to meet the initial need of the community or the individuals that you're working with. And then you want to make sure that you roll into recovery programs to help rebuild financial stability with low and moderate income households, but especially in under and unbanked populations. And then once you kind of get that standpoint and that baseline, then you want to look at how do you rebuild equitable programs, capital investments, and policies to reduce and prevent the devastating financial strain on low and moderate income working families, particularly when you're looking at a situation that we have here with the COVID-19 situation. Next slide, please. So going back to what we talked about earlier, as you're looking at programs or initiatives to start the recovery process, you want to make sure that you keep in mind which one of these fits into the rebuild, relief category, the recovery category, or the rebuild category, and how you would want to make sure that they all kind of flow into place. So you're looking at getting access to credit allows individuals to be able to buy a home, and then they'll start to build wealth in regards to having savings, and then that allows them to go into retirement accounts and then get their insurances, and then if they want to, business ownership. So you see how these things kind of build upon each other. And then when you're looking at personal resources, how being able to provide adequate education to individual will allow them to be better prepped to get access to better health care. If they're healthier, they can get into more job skills and experience. They have access to transportation. It allows them to be able to network and actually expand their horizons to more abilities to access these asset building features and mechanisms. So in closing, what we want to look at is, what I really want to leave you with is the following. Asset building makes prosperity achievable. That's why funders and community stakeholders across various sectors are investing in asset building strategies for greater impact in low and middle income communities. COVID-19 affected the local, national, and world economies landscape in unprecedented ways that will have long-term ramifications that we've yet to discover. So it would take new and innovative collaborations, both from the public and private sectors, to overcome the impact of COVID-19 in these communities that were affected the most this past year. So I want to thank you for your time. Hopefully, I've been able to provide some more insight into regards to what particular asset building is, and some things that have been how COVID has really started to impact a lot of what's happening here in the state of Indiana. So again, I want to thank you for your time, and I would like to now turn it over to my colleague Andrea, who is with Lake Area United Way, who will talk more about a actual program that's happening here in Northwest Indiana and how her organization is achieving this. Andrea?
Thank you so much, Tyrone. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here and share some information about our Lake Area United Way Level Up program. So just to start out, I wanted to share with you a little bit about Lake Area United Way. We are located in the northwest corner of the state, about as far northwest as you can go, about 30 or 40-minute drive from Chicago, depending on how fast you drive. And we are blessed with both an urban community in Gary, East Chicago, Hammond area, and some rural communities to the south, as well in Dyer and St. John. and Lowell. And so our whole purpose at Lake Area United Way is to help families thrive. And we do that in a number of ways. And we're focused on a particular population called ALICE, which you're all familiar with, the asset limited, income constrained, and employed population. These are the folks who are working sometimes 2 and 3 jobs, but still not able to make ends meet. And these are the folks who are one financial emergency away from disaster for their family. And so we chose a number of years ago to put a stake in the ground around helping ALICE. And we knew that if we really wanted to make change, we'd have to look at both technical change and adaptive change. So we know that there are some amazing best practices. There are amazing authorities who can tell us how to help families become financially sustainable. There are studies, there's research, and we know that we can apply those best practices, and we can look to those authorities to help us make change. But at the same time, just having those programs and those instructions were not going to be sufficient for what needs to happen on a community level. And so we needed to look at adaptive change. So the work that's getting done in adaptive change is done by the people and with the people who are going to experience that positive change in their lives. And so while we worked together to find the research and those best practices, but we also engaged with the population of ALICE and did focus groups and listening sessions and pulled that all together. We came up with 5 basic strategies, or I should say, we have evolved over the last 2 years into 5 strategies, because this is very much an iterative process where we are trying some solutions, working with the families, and learning what works, learning what doesn't work. But our main goals that we're working toward are to help ALICE families attain better paying jobs, help them develop financial wellness, create access to quality, affordable childcare and out of school time programming. And we know that we need to buttress families with basic needs support. We know that when families come into the program, it's because they are in a place of instability. So going back to what Tyrone was mentioning with the 3 R's, there's a certain amount of relief work that we need to help families navigate to before we can help them on that road to recovery. And then finally, we knew that we needed to engage the community, to stay engaged with the community so that we could begin to change systems. So ever since the beginning, we had started with some work groups. We convene employers, we convene providers, and some of our coalition, our Financial Wellness Coalition, for example, also involves families that are participating in their own financial wellness. And most recently, during the pandemic, we created a mental health supports working group. And so these are folks that are engaged in these particular areas, and they are helping us to develop and create strategies that we will work with our families on and learn if they are applicable with in our families' lives, and then help us to refine our strategies moving forward. So we have a jobs work group. And that was really where the idea for our Level Up program was born. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a second. We have a childcare and out of school time work group, and we have been able to provide family childcare grants to our Level Up participants that are working on their goals, so we can relieve some of that financial strain that folks experience if they need to go back to school, or if they need to just be in a group that is doing job search or working on their resume. So we're able to relieve some of that financial strain. We're partnering with Methodist Hospital on their North Lake campus in Gary to actually establish a childcare center in a childcare desert. And then we also have invested some of our campaign funding, United Way campaign funding, into subsidies for ALICE families in the community, not necessarily enrolled in our Level Up program, but still needing that extra support so that they can continue to work or continue to go to school. Our Financial Wellness Coalition, I'm going to talk about all of these strategies in a little bit more depth, but we employ and then we also fund financial wellness navigators. We support financial education. We've supported our the Money Smart Week, and we've launched just at the beginning of this month our Community Savings Challenge. Our mental health supports group created 3 different strategies this year. We wanted to have a place where we could list all of the available mental health resources, and that is resourceroundup.com. This is a United Way funded and maintained, I should say it's a Lake Area United Way funded and maintained website, and we list any kind of available basic needs support that is out there. And so we committed in this mental health work group to really research and develop our section on mental health supports so that we could create some awareness work with parents who throughout this pandemic have been very taxed, very stressed if it comes to working with their kids remotely on their e-learning, working with technology that they may or may not be familiar with, and just the general stress of living through a pandemic, perhaps having family members who have been ill or who have passed away because of the pandemic. We know that there's a great need for mental health supports. And then a third strategy is also to lift up some social activities that some other partner agencies are doing that can help mitigate some of the negativity that came from the isolation during the pandemic. So how does it all fit together? Our Level Up program is what we are using to help families thrive, and that's our ultimate goal. And I would say that it has evolved to this. At the very same time that we are working with an ALICE family on helping them to attain a better paying job, we are also introducing them to a financial wellness navigator. We're introducing them to a financial education class. We are at the very same time as working on resumes, helping to explore different career opportunities. We are also working on that financial education. And we realized it didn't start this way. We thought that it was going to be something sequential, that we help families get into better paying jobs, and then we work on the financial education. But we realized pretty quickly that these 2 pieces of the program needed to start at or about the same time when a family comes into the program. And then on this third level, we see the supporting strategies. So in order to achieve a better paying job, sometimes folks need to go back to school, finish their HSE. Maybe they need to attain a new certification, and we work with different educational partners up here in Northwest Indiana to help make that happen for the students. They need that quality, affordable childcare and out of school time programming. And that's really a 2-gen investment right? That is not only the workforce issue of being able to help families stay working or find work, but it's also knowing that that quality, affordable, paths to quality 3 and 4 curriculum-driven childcare, that's really going to pay off for the children in the future and in their academic and work success. And then finally, as I mentioned before, there's those basic needs supports, that relief that sometimes needs to happen before a family can feel like they are on solid footing. So how are we staffed? How are we doing this? Because this is a very different model for a United Way. And it's very different work for a United Way to engage in. And it has never been our goal to have a whole cadre of navigators that are working for United Way. But we needed to have some navigators working for United Way so that we could learn, so that we could understand what some of the barriers were, what some of the best pathways to success would be for our families. And so we have navigators on our staff at Lake Area United Way over here at like 9:30 in the morning here. We have funded a financial wellness navigator at Northwest Indiana Community Action. They have a financial services department, and it makes perfect sense to fund a financial wellness navigator with NICA. We also fund a financial wellness navigator at Northwest Indiana Reinvestment Alliance. And of course, the Reinvestment Alliance is working toward fair housing for everyone. And so particularly people of color. And so our work with them makes a lot of sense as well, to have that financial wellness navigator there. We are funding an out of school and childcare navigator at Geminis Corporation. They are our region's CCR&R agency. And so it makes sense to have that person, that navigator located there. And then we are very excited, the Boys and Girls Clubs is actually in the process of bringing on a United Way funded family career navigator. So like the ones that are at United Way, this person at the Boys and Girls Club, and I believe they're going to be located in Cedar Lake, will be working with the families of the kids that they serve, and helping them get access to the better paying jobs, helping them with their financial, referring to our financial wellness navigators. So our whole idea is to learn what we can learn and then spread the idea out in a way that we can do, which is funding those organizations to do this work. So let me talk a little bit more in depth about the financial wellness strategies. Our financial wellness navigators, as I said, we have one at NICA and one at NIRA. They work individually, one-on-one with our clients in the Level Up program. And as Marie had mentioned, there's about 85 clients who are actively in the program. So they work on budgeting and expense tracking. They work on debt reduction and credit repair. They work on savings and individual development accounts. Actually, NICA is the organization that facilitates the individual development account program in our community. And so these are incentivized match savings accounts that are for specific purposes. Could be for home ownership, could be to save for transportation to and from work, could be to save for a new business. And I think there are a few other possible savings goals that would qualify for the individual development accounts. And then I will say that most of the clients that come into our program have a goal of home ownership. And so we help them, we work with them toward that. So just to give you a sense of the work that's going on, right now we have 30 clients that are participating or have completed their budgeting and expense planning. We have 2 new homeowners, which is very exciting. We have 18 who are in home ownership programs, 5 who had a goal of improving their credit and did it. And then there are 26 people who have increased or are in the process of increasing their savings. So working with those financial wellness navigators is really a great support. We also fund some financial education, in particular working with NYRA on their financial education workshops and supporting the navigator who coordinated all of this. And the topics are everything from rebuilding credit and identity theft to predatory lending, budgeting basics. You can see all of the topics that she put together for the first part of the year. We promoted Money Smart Week. This is a program of the FDIC, and this year, because of COVID, was completely virtual. And we were not encouraged to do any local activities, but instead to promote all of the virtual learning opportunities, which were, I would say snippets of information. So, 8 or 10 minute snippets, video snippets to help teach about a particular financial education topic. So we promoted it with another local United Way and with the BankCon Alliance that they coordinate. Our nonprofit and bank partners on the Financial Wellness Coalition shared that with their networks and clients. And we reached out to local universities and community colleges and radio and media outlets. We offered an incentive for our clients to participate. So if clients wanted to participate, they needed to watch 5 of the lessons, and they could earn an incentive, which was a gas card. So we were happy to provide that for the folks that made the commitment to watch those classes. And so we had 7 participants overall, 4 of whom met the 5 classes criteria. And one of them, I'm happy to report, was inspired by those lessons, and she opened up her very first savings account, which was a big deal. And it got us thinking about what could we do both within Level Up, but also within the community to increase savings. And Erin Storich, who is our Financial Wellness Coalition coordinator, came across some research from the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, or FINRA, and Savor Life, which is a nonprofit that's dedicated to helping people build the habit of savings. And she came across a study and found that people who have savings balances more than $250 are 71% less likely to have to move for financial reasons. People with balances above $100 are 83% less likely to need payday loans, auto title lending, rent to own, and pawn shops. People with savings balances above $100 are 95% less likely to have their utilities shut off. And people with balances above $100 have a 61% greater likelihood of financial satisfaction. So we launched June 1st a community savings challenge. And this was not only for the Level Up participants, but also for the community at large. The goal is to save at least $250 in 6 months. That's just to create a small emergency fund. It's not, 3 months or 6 months worth of your expenses, but it's something that's attainable, and it's something that you can do. You can start to form a habit. It's about $10 a week. And so we want to encourage greater savings, even while people are still working toward that better paying job. And then a second goal that we had was to really work with our banking partners. We wanted to ensure access to affordable savings products. And so Erin did some great research, gathering information about the banking products that are available. And many of those banking products are not necessarily designed for low-income families. There are some accounts but there are a number of partners that had accounts that required an initial deposit of $100 or $200 in order to maintain fee-free savings. So we wanted to gather that information and share that with our partners on the coalition and ask them if they could waive a fee, make things provide the best possible terms, have low opening requirements. So we were able to offer participants really affordable or virtually free access to some savings accounts. And then we encouraged our participants in this program to check out Saver Life, which does some it makes it easier for people to save. By saving, users can participate in challenges and win digital prizes in cash. So it's again this incentive model, and then you just link your bank account and to this app, and you can save. And then we've also researched different apps like Digit, which actually sneakily saves for you when you link it to your bank account. It can actually pull out based on your usage, pull out a few dollars here and a few dollars at another time, and you don't necessarily even notice, which is for me a little bit scary, but it does help to build that savings while you're not going to feel that pain. And then Q Capital, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, capital, but it's with a Q. It's savings for couples and helping couples set a goal and then save together, automating that savings. So if we go back to the different strategies, these are all strategies that really need to work together. So these are all strategies that complement one another, and they are not necessarily sequential, and they are not necessarily orderly. But again, what we did find is that while you're on that path to a better paying job, you need to start working on your financial education and building those muscles. And all around supporting that family comes that access to quality, affordable childcare, that basic needs relief, and then working together with other like-minded organizations to change systems in our community to support these ALICE families. And so if you would like to learn more, that was just a very, very brief overview of the program. But if you want to learn more, we're happy to talk more about Level Up. This is my contact information, and then Erin's contact information. She's our Financial Wellness Coalition Coordinator here at Lake Area United Way. So with that, I'm going to turn that back over to our very amazing hosts.
Thanks so much, Andrea and Tyrone. My name is Natalie James, and I'll be facilitating the Q&A for this session. At this time, I would encourage everyone, all of our attendees, to take 1 minute and add your questions, add into our questions feature what your organization has been doing to help families prepare to meet the financial challenges as unemployment, rental assistance, and eviction moratoriums come about. So Andrea and Tyrone, do either of you feel the financial setbacks of the pandemic increased interest in building financial resiliency or caused ALICE families to abandon hope for economic stability?
I'll go ahead and start with that. I do think that with the COVID situation, it's really brought to light the delicate nature of regards to all of the supply chain situations and how just one or two things can really knock off a whole way of what you're looking at. So I do believe that this is an opportunity for us. I always look at opportunities that we didn't realize how much we need to work together prior to this than we do now, and we know that this is a bigger problem than any of us have. So I do believe that this is an opportunity for organizations who this type of work was not on the radar, is now on there, and they're finding that there's similar organizations that have a like mind that they're willing to work together. So opportunities that weren't there previous to COVID to do some partnerships or collaborations are now open. And I know, Andrea, you've probably seen this as a real life situation, that organizations that you may not have had a relationship with or communication with, now you're able to do some things together and building on that foundation and be able to do other things in the future.
So you're exactly right, Tyrone. So, you know, we in the past, United Way, Lake Area United Way had not had a relationship with Northwest Indiana Reinvestment Alliance, but because we started to engage in this work and work with families toward financial sustainability, that opened up the door for us to work together, to learn about what they're doing and what they are experts at, and then to be able to expand some of the work that they do with financial coaching, and fund a financial wellness navigator that there. So our goal is, again, not to have a whole big staff at United Way. Our goal is not to be the experts at everything, but instead to learn what's working, what's not working, and learn how we can work together to maximize the resources that are available, and to utilize the talents of all of these different partner agencies, as you said, Tyrone, that are working toward the same goal, that are working toward helping these families. And I don't think that folks have lost hope. That's that second part of your question there. I don't think that Alice families have abandoned hope. I do think that there are that our families have been strained, that the pandemic has caused additional strain. Most of the families have high ACEs scores, so there's a lot of trauma in their background, and they have come through this as resiliently as they do most trials in their lives. But I do think that mental health piece is something not only that we as in the nonprofit community need to look at, but also employers need to look at this as their employees are coming to work with that added stress, with those added challenges that the pandemic has placed on families.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a number of questions in the chat from our audience. The first one is from Leslie, and it asks, how have you convinced the families to participate in the Level Up program, and are there incentives to participate?
So the Level Up program, we've learned a lot. So number one, it is growing because of word of mouth. The program sounds too good to be true. And in fact, when our first Family Career Navigator went out to start recruiting families to participate in the program, she would get people with the skeptical look on their faces. It's too good to be true. You're going to help me get a better paying job. You're going to provide me some basic supports. You're going to help me get into a better skills training. I don't know. This doesn't sound real. It sounds fantasy. And so she worked hard to recruit those first few families who have then recruited additional families, who have then recruited additional families. And so it's kind of grown in an organic way. We also, the incentive in the program are those basic needs support. So it is that relief work that we're doing and helping families to navigate if they are in a pinch and they are not able to pay their electric bill for whatever reason. We can navigate to the different organizations in our community that can help. We also do some barrier buster funding. So what we mean by that are those unexpected emergencies. You have a car breakdown. You have something that just sort of pops up as a one-time expense. We're able to help come in and help that family take care of that emergency if they are working toward their goals and if they are engaged in that financial management, education, or working with a navigator. So the incentive to do the program, to work their program, to follow their goals, is really to continue to be able to continue to get those supports. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. And we have a comment from Donna that says the Legacy Foundation is participating as a subcontractor for Geminis for rental assistance. The actual timeline for checks getting to landlords is slow, and I hope that the Biden administration extends the eviction moratorium. Do either of you have thoughts on, how potentially devastating the end of an eviction moratorium at the end of this month could be for the families in your region?
I do have this idea that because Legacy Foundation just conducted a study with the University of Chicago Harris Fellows in their School of Public Policy. And Donna, if I get this wrong, please feel free to correct me, but the study showed that there were 185,000 people in Lake County who are at risk of losing their homes, losing their housing, I should say. So it's going to be huge. I don't know if Kelly is on from Legacy, if I got that number wrong, I apologize, Kelly.
Yeah, and I would just like to add to that, unfortunately, it's not just a Northwest Indiana or Indiana issue. This is a national issue. I'm talking with my colleagues all around the country. Everyone is concerned about the level. The dollars are there, but the rate in which the monies are actually going out to the people who need them is at a very low rate. So everyone is having these conversations. So it's my belief that because it is a national issue and there's so many regions and areas of the country that are facing some of the issues that we are, that there's going to be a lot of pressure to extend the issue or look at other solutions for this. So I would be cautious, but I think that because we're not in this alone, we're not, on an island, that this is a national issue, that there's going to be so much pressure once it gets closer to that moratorium time, that there's going to be some more conversations and hopefully some solutions to that issue, or at least some relief with that situation.
Absolutely. Thank you both, Andrea and Tyrone. And now I'll pass it over to Jessica to wrap us up.
Thank you, Natalie. And just thank you both so much for sharing your thoughts, your expertise this morning. Thank you to First Financial Bank for sponsoring today's conversation and the work that we do. Thanks also to our cross-marketing partners, the Indianapolis Neighborhood Resource Center and Indiana Philanthropy Alliance. The conversation has been recorded and will be available in our COVID-19 Resource Hub on the Prosperity Indiana website. And thanks to the great response from our previous programs and continued support of First Financial Bank, we are excited to announce the Changing for Good series will continue. We will generally keep the series every other Monday format, and the next program will be addressing BIPOC mental health in Indiana communities. If you're interested in reaping the benefits of PI membership, please contact our engagement director, Rita O'Donohue. And her deep gratitude to Andrea and Tyrone for the amazing conversation. We appreciate everyone for joining us today. And then before you sign off, please complete the short 3-question evaluation that will pop up on your screen momentarily. We will see you on July 12th to continue changing for good. Thank you.